to the presentation of my trip to Ireland and the genealogical results that I found there. And then on the outside chance that some of you might be thinking about going to Ireland, I have a few hints and recommendations for you to consider in taking what you want to take with you so that you are prepared to go over there. Any questions so far? I have a short-term span here. Which button do I push? To advance, okay. It worked. All right, so this is going to be a review of the last program, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why it's so hard to do Irish research. Can anybody think offhand the hardest reason why? Yeah. Same names is a good one. I think my biggest difficulty is that there are 80 years worth of Irish censuses that are gone. From 1821 to 1861, they were destroyed in the Four Courts rebellion, and then from 61, 71, 81, and 91, those 40 years worth of census records were destroyed because they pulped them for the war effort. I don't know what you use pulp for in the war effort, but anyway. So all of the 18th century census records for Ireland are gone, with a few exceptions of a little bit of fragments in Northern Ireland. Common name changes, you know this, Thomas Sullivan. How many Thomas Sullivans do you think Ireland has? And then, of course, the women changed their names when they got married. Spelling variations, and I'm going to show you some spelling variations for just two of my families, the Moody's and the Rileys. And then when we go and we start in the United States, we usually look at census records. And we have the name of our ancestor, and we have the column that says where he was born, Hartford, Connecticut. And then in the next column it says where his father was born, Ireland, and where his mother was born, Ireland. So there's no specific origin for where these ancestors are born. So that's why it makes it so difficult. So we're going to try and condense it down to 5 steps on how to find them. And as all good genealogists, you know that you start from what you know and you go to what you don't know. Because along that path, you are discovering things about your family that you didn't know. I was born in the United States, so I start in the United States, and I follow my ancestry back in the United States. Before you even think about going to Ireland, you should be looking at everything for your family's ancestors: census records, birth records, marriage records, death records. Well, we all know those. We might even know some probate records. But then we start thinking about, okay, what about tax records? What about land records? What about obituaries? What about gravestones? Gravestones have some very interesting things on them. We're going to talk about that one. So those are all the different kinds of things that you need to find out before you even think about going to Ireland, researching in Ireland. In the process, you may begin to find out a county that your ancestor came from. Or maybe, if you're really lucky, a townland. And once you get to that townland, you are home free. You are then ready to go to the Irish records. And in the Irish records, as I said, oops, I pressed the wrong button. The center. This is different from mine. This one works. Let's see, where am I? There. Tax records. There are 2 types of tax records in Ireland. One is the Griffiths valuation, one is the tithe allotment. We're going to talk about those. Church records are really, really good if you can find what church they're in. But to do that, you have to know what the townland is. Civil registration started in 1864. So if you're looking for ancestors from 64 on, they should be in the civil registration. But if you've gotten back farther than 1864, if you're lucky, then they're not going to be there. Census records, well, we've already talked about that problem. And then land records. Surface valuation is a good clue there. At the time that you begin searching these major records, then you're ready to go to other Irish sources. Be aware that if your family was dirt poor Irish farmers like my family, they're not going to have probate records. So you're not going to need to worry about that. They may have a gravestone, maybe not. Newspapers they might be in, but maybe not. Again, you have to do an exhaustive search. All right, we're still reviewing the last program. The record scarcity or the poor records. Ooh, I went the wrong way. That advances the bottom one. All right, we did that. Didn't we do that? Census records in the United States, those are where I start first. And those give you your family group sheets, which are wonderful. Then you've got family oral history. If you're lucky enough to have a grandmother that's still alive or a mother that's still alive, aunt, uncle, you can tell I'm from the East Coast, aunt, answer what you step on. But the family oral history is very important and can give you clues. Be aware that families kind of forget when they get older, so what they tell you may not necessarily be true, but it's a good clue as to where you can start working. Of course, the vital records, now I'm afraid to punch this thing. Top one? Vital records are pretty much available in the United States, except for maybe those courthouse records that were burnt during Sherman's March to the Sea. Immigration and immigration records, you will find better records for immigrants than you will for the immigrants, for the country that they left from, because you really don't know what port they left from. So the immigration records, and we have a lot of websites available online now. Yes.
You want a treat?
Okay. You start from the known and you go to the unknown. So you start from where they were in the United States. Let's say they had a baby in Philadelphia. Chances are that's probably the port that they came into, and they settled in Philadelphia for a couple of years because they just didn't have enough money to go anyplace else. So try and find where they're located in the United States along the eastern seaboard, and then chances are you take a look at those ports and see what port they could have come in. So you trace them from the United States to England to Ireland. Go to the known to the unknown. Well, probably the passenger lists usually tell you. Okay, let's talk about this after the program, because this is a how-to for a specific situation. All right? Probate records. Oh boy, did I hit a big one on that one. Thomas Sullivan, this fellow. Probate records. I'm going to talk about that one more, so we're not going to go into that too much. Obituaries. My Irish friend from County Leitrim, I found out that he was from County Leitrim through his obituary in the Omro, Wisconsin, excuse me, not Omro, Fort Brown, Wisconsin obituaries. And it said right in his obituary what county he came from, so that's a good, ooh, shucks. The bottom one, thank you. I should probably give this to you. Where are we? Oops, we're going too far. There. All right. And then the gravestone inscriptions, which is where we're going next. Gravestones are wonderful sources. If you hit, look at this, Mary Collins, and it says right there, she's a native of County Cork. Right? Look at this, I'm doing it. So she's a native of County Cork, and we've got Mary, we've got James, Daniel. So we've got 3 data points that we can take a look at, and that is much more helpful than only one. Here's Mary Hartney's gravestone. She's a native of Askeaton is the correct pronunciation. It's Askeaston. It was misspelled on the gravestone. And there it is right there. So gravestones are wonderful sources, can be wonderful sources for where you can start. Well, here's a few of my Irish relatives. I've got some that are in Northern Ireland. These are only a few of them. And then I've got some in the Republic. We've got the Sullivans, we've got the Rileys and the Roddies and the Sweeneys, the Powells, and Coonahans and McVeys. We're not going to talk about all of those tonight. Is that okay? The next thing you want to do is find your ancestors' place of origin. And as I said, you go from the known to the unknown. So you take a look first at the 1911 census and see if they're in there. Then, if they're in there, you go to the 1901 census. And these censuses are kind of like family group sheets. So if you've got your great-great-grandfather and he's a sibling or a child, that census record is going to have who his parents' names are. And so then when you go back to the 1901 census, if your child or your ancestor's child is not listed there, it's because it's probably not born yet. But you've got mother and father's name, so you can, that's how you build your tree. As I said, the civil registrations started in 1864. Before that time, you've got parish records, you've got Griffith's valuation maps, and this was all done in the first one, and we're not going to go through them again, so I'm sorry, you may have to come back. Tithe allotment maps, and then you really do need to understand the Irish administrative divisions, because, for example, there's 4 provinces in the country of Ireland. Then there are the baronies. These are the old divisions. But because of the old divisions, that's where all the probate records are, is in the baronies. Then you've got the counties, and you've got the poor law unions. And again, in the other program, I talked about what that was. Your parish registers, which are both civil and religious, and then your townlands. And I'm going to point out a book that I could not do without. I take this everywhere. You can see where I've got the tabs. This is a book that is the New Genealogical Atlas of Ireland by Brian Mitchell, and it divides into baronies, counties, civil parishes, which those boundaries are different from the religious boundaries, because the religious boundaries had to be larger in order to have enough people within them. So the 2 boundaries are not contiguous. They are different. They're similar, but they are different. And then it's got the points of where the townlands are. And that's where you're aiming to get. Wonderful book. You've got to have it. All right. Search the major Irish records. We've talked about this, the civil registrations for birth. They didn't really do too much recording the deaths. I don't quite understand that. They were more interested in the births and the marriages, especially the Catholics. I guess you can go to the graveyards and get the death information. You can go to the churches too. Protestant marriages were recorded beginning in 1845. And this would be in the northern part, in Ulster. Before these dates, your birth, marriage, and death records are where? In the parishes. And so, if you want parish birth, marriage, and death records, where do you go? You go to the parish records, yes. You've got to find those. So here's only 6 families that we're going to look at. And we're going to look at them together because Terence married Mary, so that's really kind of one family. And as I said, I found Terence's obituary, and through that I then found the fact that they were from County Leitrim in Ireland, and I went on from there. The vital records and census records, this is in Northern Ireland. These people were Protestants, they were Presbyterians. They came over from Scotland. I traced them from the United States to Scotland, and then to the IGI. Elizabeth had twins, and they were born in Brochane, Ireland. And so that's how I was able to find them in Ireland. I would not have known to even look for them in Ireland. Sorry, IGI? IGI, International Genealogical Index. The third family that we're going to talk about is my favorite. That's Thomas Sullivan and Anna Sweeney. And I found them using probate records. I found them last year in Salt Lake, isn't that? So here's a map of Ireland. And as you can see, County Leitrim is right there. Antrim is up in the north. And County Kerry is down here in the south. The Sullivans and Sweeneys were down here. Interestingly enough, the Sullivans and Sweeneys were on my husband's side of the family. My side of the family is Howells and Coonahans, also from Killarney, County Kerry. They knew each other. I know they knew each other, but one set of them went to Wisconsin and the other set of them went to Massachusetts. So let's start with the 1901 and the 1911 census. Here we go. Bottom. We did that one. Okay. Here's the census year. There are over 5,000 Rileys in Ireland. There are only 122 Roddies in Ireland, families. So guess which ones I decided to search with? I am really lazy. This is a free website. You got it. And it's number 11 in the handout. So if you don't have the handout, you might want to pass this around because I am going to be referring to some of these because I'm not going to save the websites. I don't even know if you can see them. Yes. Yes. No, they're not Scottish. They're Irish. They're free. The Scots want money. That's okay. I'm Scottish too. 1911. So I typed in Roddy. I typed in the county. I wanted both sexes because I wanted girl Roddies and I wanted guy Roddies. And then I hit the search button. That's how I found my Roddies in that side. Here's John Grenham's Irish surnames. John Grenham, love that man. I have 2 books here by him. Tracing Your Irish Ancestors. If you don't know who this man is, you need to get some books and read. An internationally renowned genealogist on Irish research. Yes, yes. The books that are on this paper, I've got the call letters for the books that are over there in the library. I'm trying to make it easy for you. All right. This is what the website shows, is all of the variations of the Irish surname. So if your name is not R-I-L-E-Y, It may be R-E-I-L-Y. It may be R-E-I-L-E-Y. And computers are not very forgiving. You need to know how to spell the name or you're not going to get the result. So that's why this is an interesting book. Coats of arms, I don't have any of those people. I just kind of skipped that one. And this is the green book that I showed you, the Brian Mitchell book on the Atlas. So we're back in County Leitrim right now. In County Leitrim, I knew that Riley and Roddy's were from County Leitrim, and because of the search on where all of those names might be found, I found out that they were, I narrowed it down to Ballinmore, which is the Roman Catholic parish. County Leitrim is in the Republic. Ballinmore is the Poor Law Union. Carrigallen is the barony. Otterock is the civil parish, which is where I found the records for in the civil parish. I also thought I'd like to find some living relatives. And so, guess what? Ireland has its entire telephone book online, and it's free. That's the website. It's number 19 on your list. You can divide, you can choose either residential or you can look for a business. I typed in residential, I typed in Roddy, and then I hit find and hoped I was lucky. Well, you know what? I was. There were only 3 in Ballinmore, 3 Roddies. I called them, and the first 2 didn't have internet access. So I said, well, I can't keep calling them. The third one I called had internet access. I said, what's your website? I mean, what's your email address? And so for the next 4 months, we had a conversation back and forth. And finally, when it was getting time for me to go, his wife said, why don't you plan to stop by and stay with us for a few days? Ah, that's just what I was looking for. So I got to Ireland, and I'm up in Belfast, and I'm calling Philip Roddy, and I said, now, County Leitrim's in the center of the island, and the island is kind of like the saucer, a cup and tea saucer. Well, it's the saucer. You got these mountains on the outside of the island, and then you've got this kind of plain where the farms are and the bogs are, and that's on the inner part of the island. County Leitrim's in that area. And so I said, I haven't been able to figure out what bus to take to get down to County Leitrim. He said, not to worry. Go to Enniskillen and we'll pick you up. Enniskillen is in Northern Ireland. Well, Belfast is too. So I went over to Enniskillen. I said, I'll be wearing a red hat. And so they were able to find me easily. And we're driving down the road at 60 miles an hour. And as we're going by this one little area, Philip says, well, now we've left Northern Ireland and we're coming into the Republic. And so my point is there, if he had not pointed that out, I would not have known that I was going from one country to another, because there's no more barricades, there's nobody there to stamp your passport. You just went from one place to the other as if you were going from Mesa to Tempe. And I like that. So we get down to Ballinmore, and they feed me, and I said, okay, what are we going to do for tonight? And he said, well, I have invited a few Roddies over so we can talk genealogy. Ta-da! This was the most fantastic time. All of these people are Roddies, and they are all from this area, and we started comparing family group sheets and Griffith's valuation maps and this and that and the other, trying to figure out how we all fit in. And interestingly enough, some of them didn't even know each other. So I was instrumental in getting them together. So that was fun. No, they were all from that area. Yeah, they were all from, no. they didn't know, they knew of each other, but they didn't know each other. This is the house that I stayed in, Philip and Eileen Roddy, and that was my bedroom up there. The kitchen. The kitchen is a modern kitchen, but as you can see, it's got a door here that goes into the living room and into the dining room. Excuse me, that goes into the living room and dining room. This goes into the sitting room, but you can shut both of these doors so that the kitchen is completely enclosed, and this wood stove heats the whole kitchen. And it's also a drying rack for the towels that they use to wipe the dishes, and also to dry their clothes when they've gone out and it's been raining and the sweaters are hanging up there. And a nice place to sit and stay warm by the fire while his wife fixes supper. Anyway, I thought it was very homey. And these are some of the, he took me around. He was my chauffeur for the 3 days that I stayed. And he took me around to all these graveyards that had these wonderful Celtic crosses. There's another one up there. All families. And so I took pictures of them. Have not yet even put them into my computer. I've been home 6 months. Okay, so now this is my transition slide. I'm not going to show you my travel log pictures except in transition slides. This is my transition slide saying we're getting ready to go to County Kerry, and County Kerry is on the ocean. So this is a picture of the ocean, and we're going to get Tom's probate in Wisconsin. Now Thomas married Anna Sweeney, and I know all of his children, and so I'm looking for a probate. He's from Armour, Wisconsin. So I'm looking for a probate for Thomas Sullivan in Armour, Wisconsin. Armour, Wisconsin is about 14 miles outside of Oshkosh. Very small farming community. Can't be very many Thomas Sullivans there. Find a Thomas Sullivan probate, get the film, put it in the machine, crank it up. Ah, Thomas Sullivan. And he's leaving. Who? Panora? This is not Anna. And he's leaving his estate to Jeremiah. Who's Jeremiah? And then we go down with John. Well, everybody's got a John. And then I get to Thomas Sullivan Jr., and I figure it out. Oh my gosh, this is Thomas's father. And so I hit the jackpot going to the records in the United States before I even went over it. So now think about this. I have 4 names: Thomas Sr., Thomas Jr., John, and Jeremiah. Plus I have Hanora, and I've got the girls, but they don't usually show up in the record. But those 4 men's names really got me excited, because with 4 names, I could pinpoint much more easily where this Thomas Sullivan came from in Ireland. You understand? Okay. So I went to Griffith's Valuation, found them in Killarney. Not only that, but they were all 4 of these guys are located on Fair Hill. And so when I went to Ireland, I stayed in a youth hostel. Well, if it isn't my friend, come on in. Good to see you. I stayed in a youth hostel. Guess where it was located? It was right across the street from the bus station that I tooled into, and it was on Fair Hill. So I walked the same streets that my ancestors walked, and that was really exciting. Didn't get too far on the Sweeneys. That was discouraging. We need to know naming patterns. How many of you have heard of naming patterns among the Irish? Okay. First son born is named after the father's father. Second son born is named after the mother's father. Third son born is named after the father. So if your father's name is Thomas and his father's name was Thomas, now you've got probably 4 generations of Thomases in there somewhere. Anyway, it's important to know the naming patterns because you're going to see this following throughout generations. So here we have Thomas Sr. I found out he was born about 1790. I didn't know that if I hadn't found the parish registers. He had 3 sons. His first son was John, born in 1820. He had 3 girls before he started having sons. So so my question to me is Tom's father, who would have been born probably around 1765, 1770, and those records don't go back that far. I'm stuck right there, but that's all right. I just wanted to break 1800. But would his father's name have been John? Good possibility. Then Tom was born, and he kind of breaks the mold. He should have been born after Hanora's father, the mother's father. But seems, unless Hanora's father was Tom, but I don't think it is. And then Michael was born, so would that have been Hanora's father? And Jeremiah, I don't know where they got that name, but in the Irish records, Jeremiah's name is Dermot. Dermot. D-E-R-M-O-T. Dermot. And they're all born in Ireland, so wonder what that means. Oops, I hit the button. Ooh, yeah. Where am I? Okay. Yes, it's the same way. The first daughter born is named after the mother's mother, second is father's mother, and third is mother. Okay. So this is the valuation maps that were able to help me find them on Fair Hill in County Kerry, in Marnie. And this is a detail. On lot 2, Jeremiah is a tenant. On lot 13, Thomas is. Lot 14, it's vacant, but he's the leaseor. That means he doesn't own the land, but he owns the right to lease the land. And then lot 15 is owned by John. So there they all are. And they're all living in close proximity of each other. That was exciting. I would not have found that if I hadn't found his probate record in the United States. Do everything you can to find your people as much as you can in the United States before you try and go overseas. Hi, the plotman. We're going to need to go a little back right there. Come back. Invite me back. All right, so these are some of the strategies I used to get ready to go to Ireland. And then I organized my papers by county because I was going to the counties, and I had paternal family names as well as maternal family names in the same county. So it was, rather than organize them by families, I organized them by counties and where they live. All right, the next steps are the baptisms, the marriages, and the burial registers. And so that's why I did go to the Family History Library in Salt Lake, tried to find as many as I could on microfilm, but then I just had to go. And that way I could go back more generations. This is a summary of a table of church records, and there are tables like this that are available in some of these books. You can see some of the problems. Little record loss there. Here, half of them, a third to a half, are destroyed. Little record loss in the Presbyterian sector. My first stop was to the National Library. Have to get legal. So, as you go in the door, you got to register. So now I'm in the National Library and I'm legal. Each of these depositories hold some of the same things, but then they also have some different things. And so at the National Library, they've got what I was looking for. That's why I went there first. I'm sorry? Yes, this is in Dublin. There's 3 airports you can fly into: Belfast, Dublin, and Shannon. The Dublin airport is the cheapest by far. The Plotman books. These are the original. You know the difference between primary sources and secondary sources? Secondary sources are transcriptions of. Primary sources are the record as it was created. And the Plotman books were when the Church of Ireland taxed everyone, whether they were members of the Church of Ireland or whether they were Catholic. Imagine how that went over in the southern part of the island. They all got taxed in order to support the Church of Ireland. Right. Whether you were Catholic, Presbyterian, Methodist, whatever. And so there was a little resentment there. The Griffiths primary evaluation is online. That's in your handout. The library also has lots of, I didn't even get down this far. I was too busy up here. And then they have all sorts of handouts that they give to people to help you with your research. They have an advisory service that is free if you are there, and that was very helpful. They tell you how to use the computer and what databases are on their network, and they show you how to use them. But they don't offer any genealogical services if you're over here or someplace else other than in their building. So here's a list of researchers. You can get down here at this website. That's on your handout. If you don't want to go to Ireland, I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you don't want to, you can hire somebody to do your work for you. This is the gate that you have to go through. You go upstairs and this way, and you're into the research room. You go upstairs and that way, and you're into the microfilm room. And there's the stairs that go down to the bathroom. No public elevators. This is an old building. No handicapped access. So here, it's a beautiful building though. And here I am trying to read these records. Very difficult to read because making paper back in those days was expensive, and so they made it very thin. And so you've got the handwriting going this way on the front side, and you've got the handwriting going this way that's bleeding through from the back side. And so that makes it difficult. They're not indexed. I am so spoiled by the family history people because you've indexed all your records. The records are in chronological order, but if you don't know the date, that puts you in a fix. And then the third thing was they're written by the priests for the most part. And guess what? The priests are writing it in Latin. Well, I didn't read Latin a while ago. Now, we'll see examples of some of these records later. Well, the parish registers are all in Latin. They're written by the priests. And so when you get to the civil registrations, then they are in English. Beautiful building. Look at that gorgeous dome. Beautiful, beautiful building. Now we're at the archives, so I got to get on my archives. Okay, now I'm legal for the archives. And in the archives, first thing you have to do is get an ID card. Ta-da! Picture ID, no less. Boy, do I look sick, huh? Lighting wasn't very good. And this particular depository has the 1901 and 11 censuses, the Plotman. It does have things like parish registers and marriage licenses, and so that's why I went here too. Here is the reading room. They don't allow any pens. They don't allow any cameras, any backpacks, any coats. They do let you have pencil and paper. And that's about it. Pencil and paper. In the Dublin, no. In Belfast, yes. I thought this was kind of interesting. These pillows are on all of the tabletops, and it's to protect the spines of the books because the books are so old and it helps. I thought that was an interesting idea. I'm sorry this picture is blurry. I was so excited to find the genealogy room. So, no cameras either, by the way. Did I mention no cameras? Okay, so now we're in the sign-up sheet, and I signed in. And ta-da! Who should be at the desk but John Grenham himself? I was so excited. I said, "Sir, can I take your picture?" And he said yes. And so I had to go running all the way down the stairs, 2 flights of stairs, go to the locker, go back upstairs, and I was able to take his picture. This is a fellow that has written. These are a few of the books that he's written, plus lots of CDs and lots of DVDs. He's very, very well known. I think that's part of it because of protecting the sensitivity of the paper. Yeah. I was so excited to see John that I didn't even go to the books. Anyway, he was there doing genealogical consultation, half an hour at a time. But this was in February, and they don't get very many people in February. And so he showed me how to use wildcards. And now I knew about the asterisk. He showed me how to do wildcards, and I'll explain that a little bit more in a minute. He stayed with me for 2 hours. This was worth the entire trip. It was really worth the entire trip. Why do you use wildcards? Well, okay. In the 19th century, over 50% of the men that were born in Ireland had 6 names. Over 50% of the females in the same time frame had 6 names. Now do you know why it's so hard? And then, of course, these names are recorded in Latin and sometimes in Gaelic. So that's why you want to use wildcards. I'm catching on. Okay, men's names. Here's the English, Gaelic, and you can see James, Seamus. I've heard of Seamus before. I've heard of Jacobus. That's the Latin form. And then James is abbreviated as Jas, and Thomas is abbreviated as THO. So if you put in a THO asterisk, you'll pick up the THOs, the THOSs, and the THOMASs. So by using the wildcards, you're able to pick up more of the records. Same with the females. Mary is Maria in Latin. And these are all of the nicknames for Mary, including Molly and Polly. I don't know how it got that way. Another one is Bridget. Bridget's name is Delia. That's an unusual. Or Biddy. I've heard of Biddy. There's Biddy. So these are interesting, and these names are, oh, sorry, I'm moving around here. These names are out of this book. And after my presentation last year, the library bought this book. So this book is in the library over across the street too. It's an asterisk. I'm heavy-handed. Yes. list of what? Oh, yes, that's what these are. I don't know if they're in Wiki, but they are available. So here's a quick course in Latin. Filia is daughter of, Filius is son of. Another one that I ran across was, oh, where are you? No, it's yes, DE is of, et is and here's some more very different names. Jeremiah is Darby. I said Dermot, it's Darby. Okay, so we're going to search for Thomas Sullivan. I found out that his wife's maiden name was Walsh, and so I put that in. I knew that they were from County Kerry, and you can decide on this website. This is the last website on your list. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the most important one for you to know, especially before you go to Ireland. Because if I had had this one available before I went, I would have known what the dates would have been. And then chronologically, I could have gone directly to the record. But I didn't have this before I went. And it's a free site. Yes, that's the problem. Yes, I was. So I put in Thomas Sullivan, and I didn't know what I was looking for, so I didn't put a check here or a check here or here. I didn't put any day, month, year, but I did know the location, so I put in County Kerry, County Kerry, County Kerry, thinking I knew they were from Killarney, but I thought, well, maybe they might have moved around from Killarney, so I knew they were in Kerry, so I stuck with Kerry. And then I put in spouse, family member. You can put in sibling, spouse, other family members, and then you can add more family members too to make it even more specific. And then I put her last name in as Walsh. And I just found this morning. I was finishing up, and I put this in this morning, and I thought, doggone it, you know, here I've got their 6 children's baptisms. I've got their marriage. I found out that well, I knew they were Roman Catholic. And so I found 7 records all together. And here we are, the marriage and the date of it, baptism of Thomas, baptism of Margaret, Joanna, and it just went down the list, but I didn't have enough perfect view. But there they were, all of them. These are just transcripts. And to your question, they're only from these 4 counties right now, Kerry, Cork, and Ross. And now see there, Cork and Ross, those are Roman Catholic parishes. Roman Catholic parish of Cork and Roman Catholic parish of Ross. And so they go over county lines. So that's why it's like that. Carlow and then Mannigan. And then they've also done Dublin City itself. That does not include anything in Northern Ireland. And I was looking for my problem children in County Leitrim, and that's not there either. So I'm hoping that maybe before I die, the rest of them will be put in. Here's another example of why you want to use wildcards. You type in the first few letters. I think you have to type in 3. You can't just put in 1 and then an asterisk. I think it has to be 3 letters and then the asterisk. And so I put in M-A-R for Mary, and the Latin name then I could pick up Maria or any of the other abbreviations or variations or transcription errors, because that happens too. And these names that are in this database are transcriptions. So THO asterisk will pick up all the abbreviations for Thomas. So here's a copy of the transcription of Thomas Jr. Are you ready for this? It says the church register page containing this record has not been imaged. None of them for County Kerry have been imaged yet. This is the record itself. That's why I went to Ireland. And if you haven't found his name yet, there it is. It's very, very difficult to read the records. Yes. Yes. And here's a little bit bigger. There's Thomas, and his name is Thomas Celius, Thomas Sullivan, and Honora Walsh. Something D.E. or of Killarney. And then these are the witnesses over here. Oh, and down here, you notice just above, there's an illegitimate birth that's been recorded. That's also included. Joanna's birthday. This is another daughter of Thomas. One of the things that I'm very sorry that I was not able to get to, because at this point in time, I'd already been in Dublin for 9 days. And the RCBL is the Church of Ireland repository for all of the Church of Ireland records. And now remember, there was a period of time in Irish history, whether you were Catholic or not, you had to be registered with the Church of Ireland. So that's why even if you've got Catholic ancestors, you might want to go to the representative church body repository. And that's over there on Braemore Park. And I just found the bus directions on what buses to take to get out there, and I just decided, you know, I don't have time to spend the entire day out there, and it would take all day. But it's a good place to go because they too have the parish registers, and that's primarily what I was looking for. Also these other things. My transition slide to Belfast. This is the sign that was on the building right across the street from where I stayed in the hostel. There, as I said, there's really no more surface tensions, but you can almost feel underneath the surface when you see signs like this that it's still there. Anyway, Church of Ireland, this is Belfast. Not all of the registers were destroyed. They have records from the established church. The earliest records are from 1634. I'm not there, folks. I'm still in the early 1800s, so I've got a ways to go. And then, I don't know if any of you know about vestry minutes, but those are minutes of things like the church elders' meetings to do the business of the church. But they have information in them like the vital records. And they may even predate the parish records. So you need to be aware of it. If you have the time, go check out the vestry minutes. These are some of the records that are not at the Family History Library. There's this thing called Heritage Center. Each of the counties have a Heritage Center. Some of them are not fully operative or even operative anymore. County Kerry is not one. I mean, their Heritage Center is defunct. The RCBL has information, and all these websites are in your handwriting. It's interesting that sometimes you can even use Google to find a parish or information on a parish. That's how I found the church in Ohago, where the Moodys and the Stewarts were from, was doing Google. Here's, you know, I don't understand why that is, because 5 and 7, our time is kind of like 3 o'clock in the morning, their time. It may be their time. Their time would be, what, 11 o'clock in the morning. Brand new building, Crony, Public Record Office of Northern Ireland. Beautiful building. It was opened last May 2011. There's another. It's in the Titanic Quarter. The Titanic quarter is where the Titanic was built, so it's down there by all the shipyards. And you can see a little bit better picture of it there. Reception area. 3 stories. Aren't they pretty? But guess what? Bathrooms are all on the first floor. And there's no drinking fountains anywhere. I had to go down to the kitchen and ask for a cup of water. They didn't even offer to sell me a bottle of water. They gave me the cup of water and they said, please write it down as a suggestion. So I wasn't the first one. This bathroom's on the first floor. I do have to give them credit. They do have a public elevator right over here. But when you're elderly, sometimes you have the urge. You've got, and all of the reading rooms are up there on the 3rd floor. You've got to either run down the stairs down to the basement, or you've got to take the elevator. You've got to wait for the elevator to get up to the 3rd floor, get in the elevator, then get back down. Sometimes that's not enough time. This is a good record. You can read this one. This is a marriage record of Samuel Moody and Margaret Moody. Samuel Stewart and Margaret Moody. You'll notice that he was 19, she was 26, he was a bachelor, she was a spinster, he was a weaver, she was a female weaver. Well, a lot of people in Northern Ireland were in the linen industry. His father's name was John, her father's name was James. So this is really a nice record, nice clean record, taken off of the microfilm. And here they did have a machine that you could take the microfilm, put it, click the button and digitize it. So in Northern Ireland, that part, they did have that updated. This was a civil one. This is a marriage record. Remember, the Protestants go back to 1845, and these are Protestants. This is getting a little harder to read, isn't it? This is John Moody and Eliza Stewart. This is the age column. He is full. That's his age. He's full age. She is full age. Boy, doesn't that help? He's a bachelor. She's a spinster. 21 or over. They could have been 59 for all they were of legal age. Full age is legal age. Laborer. They were both from the same town, Glenview. His father's name, her father's name, and their occupations. And now we come to the one that really, really ticked me. This is my great-grandfather, and this is one of the records I really wanted to get, and look where he is, right across that line. I even marked it on here because I didn't know whether I could find it later. So I decided, all right, this is a parish register. I'm going to the parish. So I hauled myself all the way out to Ohago. Took me 2 bus transfers to get there, only to find that they were in between ministers and the church was closed. So I went to the drugstore. I'm walking all the way. I went to the drugstore, and they said, oh, you can get the key to the cemetery down at the mortuary. Okay, so I trot down to the mortuary. I get the key. I trot back up the hill to the cemetery, and I go looking around, hoping without a map or without anybody to guide me, because there's nobody to guide me, trying to find any Moody's or any Stewarts, and I was not successful. However, see that name? This is the reason why I wanted to find this guy. His name, I think, is James Buick Moody, because his son's name is James B. Moody Jr. Now, doing my research in the United States, James B. Moody Jr. married my grandmother, and on that marriage record, it says James Buick Moody. But later on in life, he has somehow or another changed his name to James Benjamin Moody. I don't know how that happened. No, excuse me, I got that backwards. I do have it backwards. James Benjamin is what I think it is. And my grandfather changed his name to James Buick. Well, my mom said, and she just died months ago at 98. So she and I have been in correspondence. She said, well, you know, I think my dad changed his name to Buick because his first car was a Buick. Well, that makes a lot of sense. However, when I was walking through that cemetery, I come across this monument. Reverend Frederick Buick's monument in Trinity Church, Otago. Now, this character, if you take a look at church records, this man was the minister for this church for over 50 years. And he was their minister when they went from Ireland over to Scotland and then from Scotland to the United States. So, that seems a whole lot more reasonable to have his middle name be Buick because of a minister rather than because his first car was a Buick. That's a pretty impressive monument for a minister. That is a pretty impressive monument. Yeah. Okay, back to Hugh. Hugh is James's brother, and again, the films are a mess. They're all scratched. They're very old. They sure put a lot of money in the building, and the building's pretty, but I think they kept the record from back in the old building with the old machines and the stuff. Another place I did not go was the Presbyterian Historical Society, and these people in Northern Ireland were Presbyterian, so I should have gone there. But again, I was too anxious to go and meet my Roddy relatives. And so after spending, I think it was 7 or 8 days in Belfast, I took a bus over to Enniskillen and waited for my Roddies to pick me up. The other place that you might be interested in is the Linen Hall. Now, this is not a hall, a museum about linen. It is a library, but it is in an old linen manufacturing building, so that's why it's called the Linen Hall. And the main thing there that I wanted to look at was maps and then their collection of genealogy. They have all these other things too. The Historical Foundation, again, there's those records that I was looking for. However, these are civil, so those are the ones that are online. So I didn't bother going there. They do have the Catholic registers, and they did have those, so I could have gone there and looked at these. And then the genealogy centers, the ones that are not functioning are Carlow, Carey, Monaghan, and Wexford. These are the 4 that are not operating. Okay, let's talk about census records. The 1901 and the 1911 are complete. The next release would be 1921, but because of the war, they never completed it. So they decided, okay, we're going to have a census in 1926. And they did complete that one. We don't know yet when that one's going to be released because of the 100-year moratorium. The 1931 was not conducted because it was so close to 1926. The 1941 was not conducted because it was in the middle of the World War. And so the next one that was taken was 1951. So we've got 1901, 1911, 1926, and 1951. We have a chance to get. I'm not going to be around for the 1951. Transition slide. Now we're going to County Kerry. This is one of the lakes in the ring of County Kerry. And so this is the beginning. This is the last. Oh, pretty good. So now we're getting ready to talk about your trip and what you need to do to get ready to go to Ireland, because I'm sure that every single one of the people in this hall are wanting to go to Ireland by now, right? So you need to find out if your biggest thing is you want to find where they live, or you want to find proofs because you're an expert genealogist. You want proof for everything, or you want to find out who the siblings were or the parents, or do you want to find out living relatives, or do you just want to keep your pedigree going back more and more, or do you want to just go over there and do a travel log kind of thing and go to the Hill of Kerry and go to New Grange and go to some of these places that you've only read about in the past. You need to prioritize what you want to do, because even being over there for 31 days, I didn't get to do everything I wanted to do, believe me. So you have to prioritize in order to meet your objectives. And these are the places that I think you should focus on for looking, other than the internet, for looking at where you want to go. These top three are Dublin, the RCBL, the National Library, and the National Archives. National Archives is where John Brennan works. On to Public Record Office, Coney, and these are all in Belfast, and then the county libraries are located in the county. I did go to the county library in Leitrim, but they didn't have any records back beyond the record that I had, so that was that. And then in order to get ready to go to Ireland, first of all, again and again and again, I'm telling you, you gotta at least know the county and the parish of where your relatives are going to be. And then I would suggest getting on the internet and finding out of the repositories you want to go to, find out their operation hours. You know, they open sometimes, some of them will open at 10 and they'll close at 4. Or they might open at 9 and they'll close at 4. They may be open on Thursday night until 6 or 7. But a good day's research is only going to be about 6 hours. Now, I don't know about you, but when I go to the library in Salt Lake, I'm there when it opens in the morning at 8. I'm there when it closes down at 9 o'clock at night. And I have an apple in my pocket, and I have a soda, and I go down to the cafeteria, and I get something to eat. But I'm there for the entire time it's open. So 6 hours, that's hardly worth getting up for, almost. You might be interested in contacting the tourist board. Housing. Let's talk a little bit about money. I was there for 31 days, and when I came home, I added up all my receipts, and I spent just under $2,000 for 31 days. I did it because my airfare was $114 round trip, because I had air miles. 55,000 air miles. I left on March 16th. I really wanted to be there for St. Patrick's Day, but if I had stayed for 1 day for St. Patrick's Day, it was going to be 65,000 air miles just on the return trip, and I didn't have that many air miles, so I had to make a decision. And I decided to stay for a longer period of time. St. Patrick's Day in the United States is much more celebrated than it is in Ireland. I was going to come home and celebrate St. Pat's here. So that was the airfare. Hostels. I stayed at hostels. There's hostels all over Ireland. And when I have timeshares too, but when I took a look at the timeshares, you know, I've already paid those maintenance fees. So I really wanted to do some trading. But those timeshares were not located where I wanted to go. The youth hostel, on the other hand, you get to the airport, you get a bus, and it takes you to the youth hostel. Drops you right off at the front door. It's right there in the middle of town. You just walk over to the library. You walk home at night. You walk over the next day to the archives, because they're all downtown, centrally located. Yes? No, a bed and breakfast is too expensive. It's college student stuff. In fact, when I made the first call to make my reservations, which I did make reservations ahead, I did the youth hostel, and so I called and I wanted to make the reservation, and I'm waiting for them to ask me, well, how old are you? Thinking, well, that's going to knock me out of, I'm not a use anymore. But they don't do that. And so, and I wasn't the only old folk that was in the youth hostel. Youth hostels. Okay. So my housing was in youth hostels. And there you have kitchen privileges. You have a shelf, and you can put your food in your sack with your name on it, and nobody else is supposed to touch it. They give you free coffee in the morning, free tea. Well, actually, that's all day. And then the youth hostel that I stayed at in Dublin, in the evening, one night would be popcorn and a movie, and it give you a chance to meet some of the other people staying there. I always stayed in, I never stayed in a room by myself. I stayed in a room that had 4 people in it. And so I had people from New Zealand, from Italy, Sweden, and Great Britain. People from all over the world were my roommates. And so that was exciting. I enjoyed that. Probably not for everybody. Let's see. Okay, so that's hotel. And then transportation, we'll talk about in a minute, so I'll go on. Admission fees, I only could research for 6 hours a day, so when I wasn't in the library or the archives, I was out taking a double-decker bus and going around the city, taking a tour, figuring out where I wanted to go. I wanted to go old Dublin, where the Viking ships came up the River Liffey, and the St. Patrick's Cathedral, which is a Church of Ireland cathedral, but still beautiful. So I used those other times during the day, and then on the weekends, the libraries and archives weren't open, so on the weekends I went on longer trips. So one of the trips I went on was to Newgrange. Newgrange is 1,000 years older than the Egyptian pyramids, 1,000 years older than Stonehenge. It is a winter solstice marker. You walk in, there's only room for about 12 people in the inner chamber. And again, it's February, so it wasn't that crowded. I can imagine in the summer it must be horrendously crowded. But in the wintertime, it wasn't. And so you go in there, and they simulate the movement of the sun as it comes down through that crack. And it expands and gets longer and longer and longer until it finally hits the inner chamber. And it's there for 17 minutes, and then it slowly retracts and finally disappears. And you are in. Really, I have goosebumps just thinking about it. It was really a neat experience. So that's what I did when I wasn't in the library. You need to figure out where you want to go when you're doing this, because you don't want to be taking the time to figure it out when you're over there. So I had a whole schedule the entire time where I was going to be. There are tour groups. I think most of those run in the summertime. I'm not really a groupie. I like to do things more on my own and go where I want to go, when I want to go. So I didn't do that. Let's talk about money. In the northern part, it's British, so they have pound sterling for their money. In the Republic, they have euros, so you need to know that, and the exchange rates are different. And another thing that I found out was in the northern part, the banks also issue their own banknotes. So that means I can have a 5-pound note issued on the Bank of Ulster, or I can have a 5-pound note issued on 5 other different banks that are out of Belfast, or I can have the Royal Pound sterling, and all of these are exchanged. It's not a problem until you leave Northern Ireland. Now, when you leave Northern Ireland, some of these other countries don't necessarily know what this Bank of Ulster is all about. And so they look at it and they say, we're not exchanging that. So I was warned ahead of time that when I got ready to leave Belfast, I needed to exchange any of my currency back into pound sterling before I left to come back to the Republic, because those would be much more easy to exchange. Just a heads up. You need to bring this book. I don't know what I would have done without this book, because as you find your ancestors, they may be from a different county or a different parish than what you had made a copy of. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, let's be careful. Another book you need to bring is a tour book. Now, this is an awful heavy tour book, and I really didn't know whether I wanted to just take the one for Belfast or the one for Dublin, but I decided I'd just take the whole book because I didn't really know where I was going to end up. A Tetley tea bag somehow got stuck in there. Let's see, another book is Mitchell's. Mitchell, where are you? Oh, that was Brian. Oh, this one, John Brenham's book. You can see I've used it. This is Tracing Your Ancestors, and it has all sorts of things about the churches, the parishes, baptism, what records are available for baptisms, marriages, records. This was an interesting book. I did not take it with me. This is Irish Churches and Graveyards by Brian Mitchell. But I did use it extensively before I left. Of course, you have to have a map. I didn't put that up there, did I? Weather. No matter what time of the year you go, you need to have an umbrella. You need to have good walking shoes because even if you've got a car, you're going to do a lot of walking because the parking lots aren't always necessarily close by. You need to have layers of clothes and a jacket. Let's talk about weather. I was there for 31 days. Guess how often I used my umbrella, folks? How many? 31 days. Anybody else? 30, 25. Going. Can you believe it? It was only raining hard enough to need an umbrella one day. Now, I used to live in Seattle, and the rain out there comes down differently. It comes down in mist, so when it just missed, it doesn't bother my hair that much. But this was rain. And when I was at the Hill of Tara, it not only rained, but it hailed and it snowed in 15 minutes, and then the sun came out. Now, that was a day. Umbrella, current passport, and make sure before you leave that expiration date is going to be after you come back. That's a good thing. It lets you get in the country again. Bring your laptop computer and your research list. Your to-do list, you know, you all have a research log. You do keep a research log, right? Okay. They do have different currency over there, so you have to have a converter. And then you always need a hard copy of the pedigree chart. And so those are some of the things that I suggest that you bring. And let's talk about transportation. Most all of you are under 70, so you're not going to have this problem. But I'm over 70, and the rental agencies weren't going to rent that car to me. And in some ways, it was a good thing because gasoline is about $9 a gallon. By the time you convert from liter to gallons and euros to dollars, it comes out to about $9 a gallon. So that didn't bother me. But the reason why I think they don't rent to people over 70 is because the cars have the steering wheel on the right side, on the other side of the car, and that means the gear shift is on the other side, so you're shifting with your other hand instead of this hand. They're all, at least most of them are in gear shifts. And then, you drive on the other side of the road. So between driving on the other side of the road, the wheel on the other side of the car, and the gear shift, it can be confusing for an elderly person. So I can understand why they didn't. But it wasn't a problem because they have a great bus system. And the trains are quick, they're quiet, they've got huge windows, so you can take pictures out the window while the train's going without any problem. And then taxis are available for a price, and it just depends on, I spend a whole lot less on taxis than I would have on gasoline, let me tell you, and that's not even including the price of the rental car. A couple of times I did one of these. Let me explain. I was at this youth hospital, and there were these 4 guys that were all about my age, sorry. Close your ears. And so I came across from the bus station, hauling my suitcase behind me, and I was going uphill, and it was 9 o'clock at night, and I really was getting a little tired because I had been traveling all day. So this guy sitting out on the front, and he's smoking a cigarette, and he sees me. He says, "Ma'am, may I help you?" And I said, "Oh yes, please." I'm not a woman's liver. And so he helped me bring my cart in, and we started talking, and he was there as a resident too. But he was a long-term resident. Now this is his story. He was living with a woman for 14 years. I'm not sure whether they ever got married or not, but they had a couple of children, and then she kicked him out. But he was living in Killarney, so he had a car. He decided to stay at the youth hostel because he didn't know where else to go. So now here's this guy at the youth hostel that's willing to help me with my bags, and he's got a car. And so I said to him one day, would it be possible for me to hire you to take me out to some cemeteries? Because that was my big problem. You know, the tour buses don't really go to cemeteries. So in order to get to the cemeteries, I had to figure out another way, and there weren't any buses that went out there either, or trains. So I had to get a car for that. And he said, "Sure, I'd be happy to help you." So we did. One day we spent the entire day going around to Scartaglan and that other one over there. And we stopped in the middle of the day. We were hungry. I said, "Let's find someplace to eat." I bought him lunch, and we continued on our cemetery search. Well, we got home that afternoon, and I said, "How much do I owe you?" And he said, "You don't owe me anything." And I said, "But that was the agreement. I was going to pay you for taking me around." And he said, "Well, you bought me lunch." "Okay, well, let me cook you dinner." So anyway, we got to be, and as you stay at these hostels, you get to know some of the people that are there more than 1 or 2 days. And the young kids haven't figured this out. They have to buy their meat and their starch and their vegetable, and so they spend a lot of money. But what I was suggesting was, okay, you buy the meat and you get the rice and I'll get the veggies, and somebody else will get dessert, and we'll have a great big feast. And so that's what we would do. We would sit at the dining room table at night, and all of these other people that were in the hostel would come by. "Oh man, it smells good in here." And they were wanting, they would see what we were eating, and they were wondering how we were able to do that. But it takes a little organization. All right, so that's how I used my thumb. What I accomplished: I found 22 primary births. I found 17 marriages. I took lots of pictures